Yeah, great. Thank you for being here today. I hope you are having a good time at the Crypto Castle at the aeternity Universe conference. My talk is about hyperchains, and yeah, I'm gonna first start with a little background about myself. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the history of blockchains, mentioning a few important things about the kind of like the evolution about blockchains. And I'm gonna briefly cover also one of the topics in the consensus models with the energy consumption of the proof of work. And yeah, what has hyperchains to do with this? This is of course the topic of the presentation, the main topic of the presentation, and also talk briefly about different implementation and instances in the future. Essentially my vision, how I think that this could develop in the future. So yeah, my name is Yanislav Malahov. I was born in Bulgaria. I'm a kind of like a serial founder. I started several companies, several in Liechtenstein and one in Bulgaria. Grew up in Germany, but yeah, made my computer science bachelor in Munich, and yeah, I'm the founder of Eternity blockchain, as you probably know, as well as of the Crypto Castle and Superhero, which is a wallet for the Eternity blockchain. Also, in the past, I've been involved in other projects, like being co-founder of the Dark Wallet project, which was one of an very early Bitcoin wallet, or I've also started crypto meetups. For example, the crypto meetup in Sofia, which Vladislav is leading nowadays, who is also here in the audience. So yeah, so I like to start things. I'm, I guess, good at it, meaning this is what I'm doing. And yeah, I need you to help me to implement my visions. First, a little history about blockchains. Of course, it started with Bitcoin in 2009. There was the Bitcoin mainnet launched in January. Since then, we have seen many new coins, blockchains, smart contract protocols or tokens launched. The first ICO ever was already in 2013, so 9 years ago, with the Mastercoin protocol or Mastercoin ICO. There were also kind of like competing colored coin protocols around the same time. And yeah, Mastercoin collected a bunch of bitcoins. I think it was several thousand bitcoins, like 7,000 bitcoins or so. Back then, it wasn't too much. It was, I think, a couple $100,000, but nowadays, of course, it's way more. Yeah, so Mastercoin showed how you can create a new token on existing blockchain, here the Bitcoin blockchain, and also how to use this as a fundraising mechanism, a very important point in blockchain land. Then we saw lots of forks and forks of the Bitcoin code base. Maybe worth mentioning is Litecoin and Dogecoin, but there have been literally hundreds of others which have taken the code base from GitHub, the Bitcoin code base from GitHub, and implemented a few changes, like changing a few constants or maybe even replacing the consensus mechanism and then launching a new coin. So this was very popular before there was Ethereum. Now with Ethereum or the smart contract platforms, most of the token launches don't require anymore that people fork the core blockchain software. Instead, they're just running it on a layer on top of the core blockchain. Yeah, another important thing what happened is the trend to proof of stake, which I guess maybe with NXT was the first blockchain which had 100% proof of stake consensus mechanism. It was a new implementation in Java. Nowadays, it's completely out of any importance, meaning it's has a $3 million market cap. It's it's a forgotten project almost, but still in the history of blockchains, it's a really important milestone, the first 100% proof of stake blockchain. Afterwards, a year later, the Ethereum ICO happened. Ethereum project got launched and publicly promoted, as well as proof of stake was promoted with the Ethereum launch to be a replacement for proof of work and to be like more energy or saving energy, not spending on the proof of work, but doing a more economical consensus model. So then we have seen also lots of forks and forks of Ethereum. For example, Binance Smart Chain started as a clone from the Bitcoin code base, or also Avalanche is using the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine. Also Polkadot in their parachains, they're using the EVM, maybe even the most popular. Polkadot parachains are heavily based on Ethereum technology. Also Cardano, not Cardano, Matic, Polygon is another example, which is kind of like just a clone with a few changes from Ethereum. And there are many more. We're gonna look into this a bit. Of course, very important for our history is also the launch of aeternity blockchain with the Bitcoin NG consensus combined with the cuckoo cycle as a proof of work. The cuckoo cycle being also a very innovative proof of work mechanism, not doing hashes or hashing, but doing graph theoretical calculation or proof to essentially do the proof of work and provide the security. And finally yesterday there was the Ethereum merge, which seems to have happened successfully. So Ethereum is not anymore proof of work, it's 100% proof of stake. And this also leads to the question, what is going to happen with proof of stake blockchains, in the sense that are they as decentralized as proof of work blockchains? We will, I guess, find this out, but there's lots of reason to essentially have some doubts about the security of proof of stake blockchains. And most likely the first 100% proof of stake blockchain, NXT, was not really secure, their mechanism. I didn't really study it, but it was a very naive approach to proof of stake back then. Almost 9 years later, of course, things in the industry have matured quite a lot. So let's see how this will work out with Ethereum proof of stake. But let me show you briefly also here the different cryptocurrencies that you get an impression of what is proof of stake, proof of work. Of course, Bitcoin is proof of work. Ethereum, since yesterday, proof of stake. Tether started actually on what was the so-called Mastercoin protocol, later rebranded Omni. So it's essentially connected to the first ICO ever on Bitcoin. Now number 3 on CoinGecko, our coin market cap. There's USD coin and USD coin being a token on Ethereum, and Binance Smart Chain being a clone of Ethereum, Binance USD being a token on Binance Smart Chain, XRP being also very early, kind of like proof of stake blockchain, but also heavily centralized, with most of the coins belonging to the founders, like literally like, I don't know, 60-70% of all the coins belonging to the founders, making one of the founders the richest person on Earth for a short period of time when the prices were high. And Cardano is actually a completely new implementation, but also 100% proof of stake. Solana, also 100% proof of stake. And Dogecoin, which is actually merged mined with Litecoin, so that the proof of work which gets done on the Litecoin blockchain can be reused on the Dogecoin blockchain to essentially secure the Dogecoin blockchain. There's a list of more. I'm not going to go to the full list, but Polkadot is maybe worth mentioning, also proof of stake. Polygon, Matic, I mentioned this before. Tron is just a copycat of lots of projects. It seems they even copied from our white paper, from the aeternity white paper. Simple copy and paste project, but lots of marketing. Avalanche, I mentioned, has the EVM blockchain. And Litecoin. I had also mentioned before, Litecoin being the silver to Bitcoin being gold. Very early alternative cryptocurrency. What's also interesting is nowadays that the Dogecoin project has a way higher market cap than the Litecoin project, although Dogecoin is reusing the proof of work of Litecoin. So yeah, when we see so many different smart contract platforms, blockchain coins, how do we compare them, or how do we make sense out of all of this? So yeah, we need to look into different criteria. So for example, the consensus model, I had mentioned it, like proof of work versus proof of stake, but there are also other consensus models like delegated proof of stake, or Solana claims that their proof of history, or lots of people think that Solana's proof of history is also a consensus model, which is not really a consensus model, but that's a different topic. And yeah, of course, the economic model is super important, like how do the coins get created, how do they flow, are there any token rewards or block rewards, who owns the tokens at the beginning, and also is it a deflationary coin or inflationary coin? Also here we have seen different approaches, different experiments in the past. The implementation language is of course also very important, like in which language did the core blockchain get created, get written. In Eternity's case, it's Erlang. In Bitcoin's case, originally it was just the C code base. With Ethereum, there were already also at the beginning alternative implementations with the Go code base and the C++ code base, and nowadays I think there's a Rust and also other implementations. And if we are talking about a smart contract platform, and I think also Bitcoin belongs to smart contract platforms. Of course, the smart contract language is important. With Bitcoin, we have a very simple scripting language. With Eternity, we have a more advanced functional language called Sophia. On Ethereum, it's an imperative language called Solidity, and so on. And this is, of course, strictly connected to the virtual machine. So the smart contract languages, they kind of like run on virtual machines, which are virtualizing the hardware below, so that the same code can run on different hardware. Another important comparison here which we can make is the abstraction level. So when developers write the smart contracts, on what level do they need to think in order to implement their solution? For example, there are smart contract languages which look very much like assembler, or even bytecode is kind of like it's not really a language, but it's a code. I mean, it's a machine language which can be, which is also just a representation of the smart contract. And then there's kind of like assembler-like smart contract languages, which are super basic. So you need to know how the instructions are of the virtual machine in order to use them. And with Eternity we have a very high abstraction level, maybe even the highest, where we have integrated advanced concept as part of the language, so that developers don't need to think anymore about how to create an oracle. In the future also they don't need to think anymore about how they launch a token, for example, because tokens are also part of the smart contract language. They don't need to be hacked into something which is not made for this, like for example Mastercoin onto Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was never made for higher level protocols or like payment channels, for example. To payment channels I'm gonna come as well. Of course, the tooling is also very important for any developer. So how do the tools look like, which the developers need to use in order to implement their solution, their decentralized application? Generally, the younger the project is, the worse the tooling is. The tooling needs to be improved over time. And these are different these were different criteria how we can differentiate this, and of course the consensus model was the first one. And here we have a problem, or at least lots of people think that there is a problem with proof of work, especially the Bitcoin proof of work, and also with the Ethereum proof of work, since they already changed. And yeah, I'm curious, like, who of you shares this thought that proof of work is something we should get rid of, something which is hugely, yeah, like just a waste of resources, of energy, of electricity. Who of you is this opinion? Do you wanna maybe raise your hand? Nobody. That's great. There's one person. Okay. One person. And who of you thinks that proof of work is highly useful and we should not get rid of proof of work and we should keep proof of work? Wow. Okay, that's clearly the majority. So at least like 10, 15 people have raised their hand, and the rest, yeah, maybe doesn't have an opinion yet, but maybe after the talk. And yeah, so do you think it's a problem if we spend 3 to 5% of the world electricity to secure the global transaction ledgers? I just leave this question open here, but yeah, I mean, you need to judge yourself. And actually the more important question here at the end, can we secure many blockchains with the same proof of work so that we essentially maximize the utility of the investment? So how can we make it that with the same work we have kind of like unlimited blockchains and they get secured by the same proof of work? Is this possible? Before I answer you this, I would like to first briefly yeah, say a few words about aeternity. Most of you probably know, but we have also recording and live stream online. So for those who don't know what aeternity is, it's a smart contract platform, a scalable smart contract platform, and the public instance is called aeternity mainnets. So the aeternity mainnet gets run by node operators and miners somewhere around the world, and the development is done a lot by the Eternity Crypto Foundation, focusing on the core protocol, and also by the Eternity establishment, focusing on dev tools and also the superhero wallet. And yeah, to implement smart contracts on Eternity, you need to use Sophia, and the virtual machine in which Sophia is running is the Fate virtual machine. And yeah, the current consensus mechanism is as I have mentioned before, is the cuckoo cycle, meaning Bitcoin NG with the cuckoo cycle as the proof of work mechanism. Bitcoin NG is itself an innovation coming out of the Bitcoin world, where a few people suggested to change it slightly, to still keep the proof of work, but add kind of like mini proof of stake chains, or maybe proof of authority chains, you could say, so that whoever mines the next Bitcoin block can publish micro blocks with, for example, a 3-second interval to essentially speed up the Bitcoin blockchain to be able to handle more transactions and to help the network to reach sooner consensus. So with Eternity, we implemented this new algorithm, Bitcoin NG. We added the cuckoo cycle to it, and yeah, this is how it looks now. This is kind of like a window to the blockchain. It's AE Now, which is a community project from China. I have no warranty on the numbers, but more or less it gives you an impression of where Eternity blockchain currently is, with the price of the token, it's around 8 US dollar cents, and a market cap around 30 million, with the latest blocks, or we have over 600,000, 56,000 blocks now, so this is an old screenshot, and we have over 33 million transactions. So that's, I think, every couple seconds, around every 5 seconds, one transaction on average. It's of course not a lot, we're still looking for the killer application which will make sense out of all this space which is still available. So lots of cheap transactions still possible on Aeternity mainnet. Besides this, probably worth mentioning in connection to this, the 3 mining pools. Since there are no hashes, it's a little bit different than with, let's say, Ethereum or Bitcoin mining pools. And there are few active oracles, and the contracts. I think this number is off. I think there are several thousand more. So if the creator of AE now is listening, let's update these numbers maybe. Cool. Here's the AENS, maybe kind of like one of the most successful use cases of Aeternity blockchain at the moment is to give a human meaningful name to addresses, or could be essentially anything, could be also hashes, for example, as addresses, or cryptographic keys as addresses, or maybe IP addresses. And there's an auction, and here you see the per second transactions. So around every 4 seconds we have 1 transaction on average. So this slide is covering the coin model, which is also a very important way how to compare smart contract platforms. So the coin model is deflationary in the sense that the amount of newly generated coins is going down. That's the same way how it's done with Bitcoin, just that Bitcoin started with 0 at the beginning, and Aeternity had a kind of like a pre-allocation following the token sale, which we did in 2017. So Aeternity blockchain started with coins from day 1 of the operation of the public Aeternity mainnet. And where are we now? So you see at the bottom of this, you see the initial amount after the token sale with around 276 million coins. And right now we have 82 AE per block. So if we look at how many, if we look at the date which is connected to 82 AE per block, we have the 12th of August, which is obviously also not fully correct, but where is this going to go in the future? So in 3 years from now, the block reward is going to halve again, and in 8 years from now, it's going to halve again. So it's going to be a quarter from now, more or less speaking. So we with Aeternity blockchain, we have kind of like also halving events, just that they're not so explicit, they're more implicit, because it's more dynamic, as you can see also in this curve. It's a very important way how to distinguish blockchain projects, to look into the economics, and you should always check how many coins there should be or will be in the future before you support a blockchain project. And at the end, in the year 2138, which is of course not the end of Aeternity blockchain, but the end of the block reward schedule, the block reward is going to be 0. All right. So what does this all have to do with Hyperchains or Hyperchains consensus? So the Hyperchains consensus is a new hybrid proof of work, proof of stake consensus model. It's leveraging the proof of work of a parent chain to secure a proof of stake or delegated proof of stake hyperchain, or you could also call it a child chain. The hyperchain node operators need to run both networks. They need to run the parent chain node as well as the hyperchain, child chain, full node, and they pay transaction fees on the parent and receive block rewards on the child chain. This concept kind of originated from a blog post which I wrote in 2016, also called Hyperchains, Secure, Cheap and Scalable Blockchain Technology for Everyone. And it's quite different than the algorithm the Aeternity Crypto Foundation is developing at the moment. But generally, it's also similar in a way to the way to secure a proof of stake or several proof of stake child chains in a proof of work parent chain. So the hyperchains are a new breed of blockchain. We're combining the best of proof of work and proof of stake. And yeah, I should probably talk a little bit more about this. So with proof of work, you have a system which is open for new people to enter, in the sense that you can spend external resources in order to gain internal coins of the system. This is absolutely impossible with proof of stake, where we always need to buy in coins first. So yeah, people who have those coins, if they don't want to sell those coins, this will obviously explode the price, while with proof of work you get a more realistic price because people can create new coins more or less for marginal cost. So it's a more open system. It's easier to get in for people who don't have any crypto yet. Just electricity and some hardware is enough, and you can start mining, and internet, of course. With proof of stake, there have been lots of complaints also about centralization, in the sense that proof of stake requires staking pools, and those staking pools like to move really close to each other so that they have a lower ping, so that they can exchange transactions with each other. So they're moving closer and they're becoming bigger because of economies of scale. So if you have like the major staking pools in one country, like maybe as it is like with Ethereum right now, then yeah, the regulators can come and just enforce the censorship of transactions, for example. With a more decentralized proof of work blockchain, this is not so easily possible. The miners are often completely anonymous. They don't require any reputation, also unlike proof of stake staking pools. So with staking pools, they usually build up reputation, and then they act in the kind of like the name of the stakers or the people who delegate their voting power to the staking pools. Also with proof of work, we have seen some sort of centralization with most of the mining pools coming from China for a while. In case of Bitcoin, this was definitely the case. Also most of the miners being in China, but right now it looks like Bitcoin is way more decentralized than Ethereum. Please check it yourself, look at how many staking pools there are, look at how many Bitcoin mining pools there are, look at how they're distributed around the world. So yeah, with the Tornado Cash example, we have also seen how a regulator tries to regulate open source software. So I guess it's just a matter of time till proof of stake blockchains are also going to be regulated, or at least receive substantial pressure from governments and regulators to essentially censor transactions because of some maybe unproven claims. Just giving some thoughts here for you to think about this in the future, maybe. But let's go to the most important topic, of course, like the Hyperchains consensus. So there has been actually already, I mentioned this with Litecoin and Dogecoin, a way how to reuse the proof of work of another blockchain. It's called merge mining. The thing here is that with merge mining, you need to ask the miners for permission. So if you want to launch a new blockchain, you will need to convince miners of the parent chain, of the proof of work parent chain, that your new blockchain is really great and it's worth co-mining. It's with essentially the actual parent chain. I mean, with merge mining, you don't really have parent chains and child chains. They're independent here, just connected through the proof of work. But obviously it's not so nice if you need to ask for permission in order to launch a chain. So yeah, merge mine chains can't really operate in private, and hyperchains can operate fully stealth and private. And yeah, so hyperchains work like this, that you have a parent chain. Let's take Bitcoin as an example, and you have theoretically unlimited amount of child chains, hyperchains called, and the hyperchains, they are proof of stake based, you could say. Still there's this proof of work element on the parent chain, so it's a hybrid approach to consensus. And for every block on the parent chain, the child chain, hyperchain delegators or people who stake, they need to essentially insert a transaction on the parent chain. It's not everybody who stakes, it's just this kind of like a staking pool operators, so it's not too bad. So there are a few talks about how this works with Aeternity blockchain. I'm not gonna dive too deep into this. If you want to know more, please watch Dimitar's talk on YouTube or here at the conference. And so because it's a kind of like an abstract concept to consensus models, I would like to invite developers to implement this concept also with other code bases, like not just Aeternity, but I would also like to see this happening with the Bitcoin code base or maybe the Ethereum code base. So it's I would like to kind of like open source this idea of hyperchains for everybody to implement their own version of hyperchains, because we really need more crypto. We need more scalable crypto technology in this world. We need more private keys directly at users so that they can do fully self-sovereign transactions whenever they want without being dependent on whoever. So yeah, the Aeternity implementation is currently at the foundation, and it's of course Aeternity blockchain based, meaning it's reusing the code of Aeternity blockchain to create hyperchains, and it's still not really clear how this will go in the future, of course, meaning first the software needs to be developed and then I guess it needs to be deployed and launched. But what is going to be the token model of these hyperchains? I don't know, meaning I'm open for lots of different hyperchains. I hope there are going to be a gazillion of hyperchains, but we have luckily the governance mechanism on Aeternity blockchain. So if you have tokens, you will be able to vote about which hyperchain should be launching first, maybe even multiple ones, maybe replacing Aeternity proof of work mainnet. I don't recommend this, but if the token holders vote for this, I guess it might happen, but I don't think it will happen. And yeah, there could be also really fun hyperchain projects like hyperchains based on Dogecoin, or it could be Aeternity code base hyperchains hooked into Ethereum Classic, for example, because Ethereum Classic is proof of work. Also, Cosmos offers some sort of blockchain SDK. Would be great to see hyperchains consensus implemented with Cosmos SDK or maybe with Polkadot SDK. We will, myself or the Eternity Crypto Foundation will probably not find time for doing this, but again, it's an open invitation to just copy this hyperchains consensus model and make it work with any blockchain. So with hyperchains, every new hyperchain has its own native coin. So with the Aeternity mainnet will probably remain proof of work. As I said, there's a governance vote which needs to or could decide something different, but for now it looks like it will remain proof of work. And one Aeternity hyperchain will be at least hooked into the Bitcoin mainnets. If nobody votes for this, I will just make sure that this happens myself. I think I mentioned this briefly, but yeah, what could be utilizing hyperchains, or which applications will have lots of utility from hyperchains? I think that's really many. Like every time you want to do on-chain transactions, it's possibly better, or cheaper, more efficient to launch a new chain just for this application, just for this use case. For example, some specific industry use cases with lots of transactions. For example, in a factory where physical items are moving between machines or between departments, they could always be time-stamped, does not need to be publicly on an expensive mainnet like the Bitcoin mainnet or the aeternity mainnets. It could be on a really cheap to run hyperchain, because hyperchain operators, they just need to pay the transaction fees on the parent chain, and they don't need to pay for the proof of work themselves, still profiting from the proof of work. So private corporate ledgers could be a nice use case, but also if you want to launch a new public blockchain, hyperchains would be excellent. So yeah, because the proof of work gets reused, you have already a really high security from the beginning, assuming that you have a fair or equal distribution of the tokens at the beginning as well. With proof of stake, it's of course important what the token holders decide. And yeah, so I would like to see many aeternity-style hyperchains, and as well as SDK to build more hyperchains in the future. This is really what I would like to see. I'm not promising here anything, but this is my personal vision of aeternity blockchain in the future. And maybe there's going to be WASM support. WASM is a new virtual machine coming from the web, which is also deterministic. Many other blockchains support WASM already. This is open discussion. I'm also inviting you to chip in your thoughts in the Eternity Forum, for example. More alternative implementations would be great. So meaning having this giant dependency on Erlang is dangerous, meaning we don't want to be dependent on anything with a decentralized system. So let's have more implementations. Yeah, maybe worth mentioning this direction that there is some sort of attempt to do an alternative implementation in Elixir, still using the same virtual machine like Erlang. So more alternative implementations would be even better. And yeah, of course, we want to, or my personal vision would be that the scalability gets improved even furthermore with state channels. More state channel use cases would be super cool. We are launching a new state channel demo, or have launched this new state channel demo on the conference. Please check it out. And of course, hyperchains generally improve the scalability of on-chain transactions, state channels being off-chain transactions. But if you really need on-chain transactions because you need proofs that things happened, time-stamped somewhere, then probably on-chain transactions are better. Whether it's on a public mainnet or whether it's on a private hyperchain deployment, these are just details here now. And yeah, of course, super important for the Eternity mainnets is the governance. It's a decentralized blockchain. We don't operate it as the developers, and we want to listen to you, to the people who have AE coins, what you guys are thinking, what should be developed next, or what should be improved next on. And yeah, I would like also to see more people at the next Eternity Universe conference, which will hopefully happen in a year from now, when there's no more, in case there are no more other issues like Corona or war or whatever could happen. So, and as one specific example of hyperchains, I would really like to see that we use Bitcoin as the entropy and time-stamping layer, Bitcoin being the #1 cryptocurrency with the largest market cap and probably the highest security of all blockchains. So let's use it as a source of entropy for hyperchains and as a layer for timestamping the commitments. It's of course expensive to write to the Bitcoin blockchain, but I think the security might be worth it. And I would like to see Eternity as the smart contract layer, also for Bitcoin, but also for other blockchains, so that you can write Sophia smart contracts running on the Fate virtual machine in Eternity-style hyperchains, hooked into Bitcoin. Potentially, there is also a hyperchain which has Bitcoin as native currency. This would be super cool, I think. So, yeah, of course, we have also many blockchains around in the crypto landscape. And what we really urgently need here is a notation for tokens on blockchains, because it's not ending. More tokens get created, more blockchains get created with hyperchains and parachains and child chains and whatnot. It's becoming increasingly easier to create more blockchains. So how can we address those chains with unique identifiers, so that we are sure about which token on which blockchain we are talking? And yeah, coming back to this slide, can we secure many blockchains with the same proof of work? Yes, I think we can. I mean, merge mining shows how it could be done, but with hyperchains we have a better way of doing this, because miners don't need to know anything about any hyperchain. Miners of the parent chain don't need to know anything. And yeah, if it's worth to spend 3 to 5% of the world electricity production to secure kind of like all the global ledgers which we might need on this world, I think it's worth it. And I think we should, yeah, make sure that this happens, and that's not, yeah, some super centralized blockchains get shut down or regulated down. It's really important that we have an alternative financial system, that we are independent from all those big governments and big corporates, which are obviously trying to control more and more. And we need alternatives. And with hyperchains, we want to provide blockchain technology for everybody, so everybody can launch their own blockchain, their own token, their own use case, their own application, as simple as possible. We're working hard to improve this, to make it even easier. And yeah, thank you very much for listening to my talk. And yeah, maybe there are some questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Yanni.